Guys, I protect myself in life just like I protect myself in the cage. Life insurance is the best defense when you're down for the count. And my friends at Creative Financial Network have got you covered. Even the most brutal fighters need a person in their corner. Champions prepare for every round. Make sure your loved ones are protected when life hits hard. Get started with Creative Financial Network today. Go to cfnlearnmore.com and get a quote from the top insurance companies within minutes. Or just click on the link below. All right, guys, we're here with a segment called Ask Uncle Chael. I went to Twitter, told you nothing's off limits, firing my way. Ryan, what's the first question? It's really a paradox with confidence. And let me try to state in the most accurate words, because every now and then you'll be kind of trying to prove a point. And look at it like a pie chart. Of that pie chart, where you will be told repeatedly you have to believe and you have to be confident. Of that chart, see, the trick on confidence is this. Of that chart, you only need a tiny little slice that believes somewhere inside, somewhere in the back of your mind, that you can beat this guy, that you will succeed, that you will go out there and perform. You just need a sliver. And not only do you just need a sliver, you only want a sliver. The more that grows, the less likely you are to perform well. All of the things that would add to a performance, urgency, speed, all those things come from fear. So, of the pie chart, you want that thing mostly filled with fear and doubt, but you just need a little sliver somewhere where you know if whatever situation you've convinced yourself of arises, you will pounce on it. Every fighter in every fight will give the other guy an opportunity to win. Every wrestler in every wrestling match there's ever been will give the opponent an opportunity to win. He'll hand it to him. And then it's just a matter of if a guy takes it or not, and then the fighter can get their head back into the game. And you're not guaranteed a mental lapse twice in a fight. You are guaranteed one, though. And it will come at some point where every athlete will give their opponent a chance to win. He's got to take it. And he's got to get through that window as it opens before the athlete recloses it. That's the answer to your question. Chael, what are your thoughts on Dark Side of the Cage? All right, I'll tell you a story on that. I was in New York. And I'm in New York covering a UFC at Madison Square Garden. Jon Jones versus Stipe. That's the whole reason I'm there. So I get a call, and Dark Side of the Cage, and Carl will be downstairs at 3 o'clock. They'll bring you here, do the whole thing, go back. Now, I went and did this, and had a very nice experience. Everybody I worked with was very nice. But when I did it, I thought it was for the UFC. I was in New York for a UFC. They called me. It was familiar studios that I had been to in the past. I mean, not for nothing, I thought that this was a UFC production. That was never explicitly stated, I assumed. Not to mention, everything we did was UFC. Dark Side of the Cage was the Octagon. The fight I was brought in for specifically was Khabib and Conor. At any rate, have a nice experience. My mother's with me. We go out, we do it together. I go home and about my day. Somewhere down the road, I get announced as the coach on The Ultimate Fighter. Somewhere down the road, that day came. And on the opening day, Dana comes in and he tells a story. And I think he was mainly telling it to Daniel, but he tells a story. Forrest was there, and Pledgen was there, and Bersari was there. And he's telling the story about how these guys, Dark Side of the Cage, have basically infringed. They're basically stealing an idea from the UFC, which is weird. He just said, if you want to do this project, I would think you got to have the UFC on board with you. And he's talking about this. And in the back of the head, I'm listening going, uh-oh. I'm thinking, it doesn't sound like he's thrilled with the idea that his talent would be out doing that. I already did it. It's in the can. Whenever this piece comes out with Conor and Khabib, But I thought it was a UFC piece. I was in town for the UFC. How would they know to contact me? It was the same car company. It was a similar area. I mean, So what do I think of Dark Side of the Ring? Well, I have a couple of thoughts. But one of them is it turns out somebody other than the UFC produced it. Why is one of Daniel Cormier's eyebrows bigger than the other? Well, that's an interesting observation, and I gotta tell you, I've never made it before. If you allow me to circle back to you, I'm gonna go stare at it. I'll even ask him flat out, but I'm picturing his lovely face. I haven't seen it, so perhaps you're picking up on something, or perhaps I haven't been observant enough. Chael, do you think the UFC would have more successful pay-per-view fights if they did less pay-per-views with some stacked cards? Well, there is no rule in economics that matters aside from supply and demand. I mean, I know jerks that have wasted their life getting PhDs in economics. If you read a single book on economics and it took you an hour, you wasted 45 minutes. The only thing you need to know is supply and demand. So to your point, would the pay-per-views go up? Yes, but there's a balance there. And there's also a point of diminishing marginal return. And what that law is in business is doing the same thing over and over, even though you might have enjoyed it at first, the exact same thing over a period of time, you will no longer enjoy it. And the example they'll give you in business school is chocolate cake. You sit a kid down with a piece of chocolate cake and he takes a bite, he's really going to enjoy that. And he takes another bite, he's going to enjoy that. But if he is forced to do that exact same thing for a certain period of time, he is going to despise doing that. So, where is the balance? Like, to your point, could you do 1 million pay-per-view? You bring in, and you do that with the sport's biggest star. Then you're going to load a card with number 2 and number 3. So you're going to put 1, 2, and 3 biggest draws in the entire sport. Does that pay-per-view move? Or did the biggest star bring in all of that same audience to start with? And that is where there's a balance. And that is where some of the business, some of the secrets start to lie. And is one pay-per-view per month the perfect amount? Should it be spread out? It's an interesting point, but as far as stacking a card goes, I will only share with you, I've never seen a card that's not stacked. And if you were to stack it more, I don't know that you have a new audience to draw from. Will Conor McGregor ever fight again? No. If the Greater Idaho movement succeeds, will you move out of Oregon or stay in Westland? There is never a day in any scenario, including politics, when I would run if I had the choice to stay and fight.
Who's your favorite steroid user?
My favorite steroid user?
Could you read it?
Oh. Who is your favorite steroid user? Couple interpretations on that. But the steroid user who I got more enjoyment out of than anybody, I mean, I had a wonderful childhood memories with Hulk Hogan. So I would say the Hulkster is my favorite. I just as equally could tell you my least favorite, which was Lance Armstrong, purely for the fact that he denied. And it was the same thing with those baseball players. They had found something that made them better at their job. Those are positive terms. Performance enhancing are good terms. If you discover something that enhances your performance, you didn't have to do anything. You just had to take something. That isn't information you should keep to yourself. That's information that could be very helpful to other people. Arnold Schwarzenegger wanted to tell the world. He really wanted to tell the world what he had learned about growth hormone and antibiotics. It's just the world wasn't quite ready. His best friend, Sylvester Stallone, did. And anybody that listened to Stallone is having a better life now thanks to the information that Stallone discovered and chose to not keep to himself. What does Colby do now? As one of his biggest fans, it hurt to see him lose Does he do a big fight with somebody like Chandler? You know, Chandler's name keeps coming up around Colby. And I got to tell you, I follow both of those two pretty close. I don't think it's come up from either one of them. I don't remember a time that Colby ever spoke about Chandler or vice versa, but I do have other people do that and bring it to me. I actually believe that those two get along pretty well. And they would almost be forced to. They both spend a lot of time at Mar-a-Lago. It would just be very awkward. Two guys in a different weight class that don't have heat choosing to find each other and have heat while at the same social events. That would just be weird, right? You want to know one that is more possible, won't happen, but more possible is Justin Gaethje. Now, Justin Gaethje's a 55-pounder. And he's the perfect size 55-pounder, same as Colby is at 170. But those two just keep finding one another. I mean, they cannot seem to get it right. When you ask what's next for Colby, I wonder the same thing. He trains like a maniac. And he trains like a guy that's still got his eye on the prize. But he is so sought after in so many different directions. The choice is his. The choice of what he wants to do. If he wants to be in a movie tomorrow, he can make one phone call and be in it. Just for example, if he wants to be a professional gambler, which on the side he is, he could pursue that full time. Like I'm talking about and everything in between. He currently has a contract to be a cage fighter. I trust that he will exercise that contract. I'm just sharing for you. He doesn't have to. Here's a question. What is the most dangerous animal you could take on and win in a fight to the death? You know, I could not imagine losing to any animal. And I've heard all these stories about bears, and I've heard all of these stories. I'm sure there's a truth to them. I could not imagine. Let me put it to you this way. There is not a creature on God's earth that God has ever created who, absent of training, meaning the creature does not have training, back I could not take. I'm face to face with a horse, regardless what it's doing, I will have its back. Any dog, any size, any way it wants to attack me on the feet, it gets me to the ground, whatever, I will have that dog's back. A bear, regardless of how strong it is, if it takes me on in combat, I will get behind that bear and I will have its back. Now, can you strangle a bear? I don't know. I wouldn't want to. I like animals. So, is me being on the bear's back enough to win the fight? It'd be very tricky as far as the anatomy of the bear. But there is nothing as far as a creature that has no training in martial arts where I could not take their back. That's a true statement. What changes would you make to the UFC if you had the ability to pull strings? What an interesting question. I just got back from doing The Ultimate Fighter. And that is one of the great experiences that is one of the great and rare opportunities that exist in our industry. It is the single greatest marketing tool our industry has ever had. So I wouldn't want to take something that's so pristine and so perfect and has that kind of heritage, but I would like to offer something for you. The Ultimate Fighter, if they did not bring in all new guys, if discovering new talent was done on a regional scene through word of mouth with managers through the Contender Series, right? I mean, old school, but the way that it's been done for years. And the Ultimate Fighter was reserved for guys who had already been in the UFC. You know, we had a season called The Comeback. And The Comeback was incredible because you didn't have to burn those first few shows getting to know the characters. We knew who all of them were. And I just thought it made it a lot of fun. I liked it. And I just think there's ways to revamp that. I know that the boredom theory at the house, at least in theory, is good for drama. Forces guys to talk and interact. You're trying to film. You're trying to get something here. But I think that it's outdated. You know, the guys used to show up drink a bottle of whiskey. Now they show up with meal prep. Like, there is a professionalism within the sport that has taken the drama out of that specific product. And I think that the engagements would be more interesting if they were topical, if they could discuss something within our sport, if they had access to an internet. They could read on there, Ilia Topuria, no longer 45-pound champion, looking to go up to 55. That just seems like a hot topic that you get some young minds in there discussing. I think I would change that. I think I'd bring some technology in, even if it was an hour or so a day. Even in prison, they get screen time. What fighters would you put in a press conference to maximize views? Now, this is a very interesting formula. It's very hard to have more than a couple of stars in the same industry at the same time. It's just a very difficult thing to do. And our own media will miss this. I've seen press conferences, they bring out all the stars. But of those stars, they put Conor on stage. Or of those stars, they put Ronda on the stage. And over a brief period of time, they come to the conclusion we've only got 2 stars. We've got Conor and we've got Ronda. And then all of a sudden, it's time for these athletes to retire and move on. And every time without fail, the media will come out and go, what are you going to do? Your biggest star is gone. What are you going to do? And they're serious. The media is serious. They don't understand the formula, even though they operate within the space, which is the passion of a fan does not go away when the athlete goes away. It transfers. And that is what is so difficult at a press conference when they are trying to maximize it and you bring in too many voices. 2 athletes at a maximum. Generally, it's 1. At a maximum. At a very rare time, you could have The Rock and Stone Cold in the same company. Generally, you cannot. But it's just because one guy sucks all the air out of the room. So when they're going, hey, we don't have any stars. It's like, oh no, we've got stars. We don't need anybody new. Those stars are on stage right now. Those stars sat there quiet because you brought in the 2 athletes that drew every single question. Best piece of advice for a young wrestler. Wow. Okay. Mine is very simple. Very, very simple. And there's could be a couple of steps to it. Because you must have the right environment. You must have the right room. Now, there's not a lot of wrestling rooms you can get to. Of the few wrestling rooms there are to get to, one with proximity to your house could be just one, and I guarantee you won't be more than 3. So this can be a process that you can bang out in 1 week. But in that 1 week, right off the bat, find what your gym is. Find what your team is, okay? And then go every single day. That is the biggest advice that I could give. And that's every day. Do not, I've got homework, or I get you. Can't even tell you some of the reasons I've heard wrestlers skipping practice, but go every day. And of every day, do your best to be on the mat. If you do, in fact, have homework, go to practice anyway, sit on the side and do your homework. Right there. And that one rule will stop all of the I have homeworks, which of course is an expression for 20 other things. Find the right gym. Go every single day. If you do that for a career of wrestling, you will like the results. Can I borrow $5? Yeah, of course. Worst loss of your wrestling career and how you handled it, as graceful or ugly as it was, I want the details. I would not need a single moment to think about that. Blood round, 1999 NCAA tournament versus Zach Thompson. And I did not want to wrestle Zach Thompson. Of everybody in the bracket, I did not want to wrestle Zach Thompson. And one of my own mentors, Matt Lindland, showed up to a tournament one time, and his teammates, or his crew, he was there to coach, but it was an open. So his boys that he was coaching talked him into wrestling, and he did, and he had Zach Thompson. And Matt beat him, but he beat him by 1 point. But Matt was a guy that I looked up to. I worked with Matt every day. I got thumped on by Matt every single day, and I find about this guy that as a true freshman goes 1-0 with Matt. And this is my introduction to Zach. That's before I actually see him with my own eyes, and I watch all the people that he's beating. There's only one guy that's ever been able to score points. Daniel Cormier couldn't score on him. Mark Munoz couldn't score on him. There's only one guy that's been able to score points ever on Zach Thompson that I witnessed, which was Brad Varian, who went on to be a 2-time Olympian. But for some reason, Brad could snap him and he could just get to this outside single repeatedly. No one else could score on him. So when I drew him, I'm thinking, but if you can't score on him, how do you beat him? There's got to be an answer. How do I win this match if I can't take him down? And 1 point is so many points. It's so many points against Zach. Because he was not a big scorer himself. He'd stay in position. He'd stop you. His defense was just excellent. And somewhere along the way, he gets some points. But that was his style. He could be taking on a backup guy. He could be taking on the national champion. He's very likely to be in the third period with a spread of 1 point, one way or the other. I take the time to tell you that because I had my point. I had the point I needed. And there was a position. And some guy, they call it different things. It's a death grip, but you roll it. I've heard pricks call it a suicide roll. I've heard them call it gator bacon. Those people should be arrested. You should be arrested if you call a wrestling hold gator bacon. If you call any form of combat anything bacon, we're not in the same club. You're in a different club. You're a little surprised you're in wrestling because you're a little, right? Anyway, so I hit the suicide roll into a death grip, but I had never missed this. I'd only done 4 or 5 of them in my life, but I had never missed it, and I do mean 0 times. That includes practice. I never missed it if, while I'm in this position, his outside leg is up. If his outside leg is up, that is my cue, hit it. And I saw that leg, and I knew I didn't need the point. I didn't need the point. Not to mention I'm where I want to be. I'm in a front headlock. I'm out front. But I told myself, you've got to have courage. You've got to see these positions. The whole reason you did all these training and all these practices to find positions like this, you must hit the roll. I hit the roll. He based out. Now my arms are completely trapped. I can't move. Referee called me Ben. That was the most painful wrestling experience that I ever had. And how did I deal with it? I'm still dealing with it today. What kind of juice were you on when you fought Jon Jones? And if you had to guess, what kind of juice was he on? It's important that you understand nobody, and I must tell you, I don't like this whole everybody does it on any topic in life, because no, they don't. Everybody does it is not true. And for the person that says it, particularly somebody that was caught, it's a massive cop-out. Where you're trying to socially displace the blame. So I don't like that. And I'm not going to make that statement. But I'm going to make one close, which is nobody, and this is literal, nobody would take one of the big 3 and not take the other 2 if they had access to it. So once you make the decision that you're going down the performance enhancement route through synthetic chemicals to be placed in your ass, there's only 3 that work. And of the 3, EPO is king, growth hormone, testosterone. Now, of those 3, growth hormone really is not a performance enhancer. Scientifically, many scientists believe growth hormone should be removed from the list, that it does nothing bigger, faster, stronger. It does nothing to make you better. I believe in growth hormone for psychological effects. When you look in the mirror, you will be more ripped. You will see your abs, for example. You just look better, and that does something for you. Russian scientists and government officials who are very openly into cheating would also have all of their athletes visit the tanning beds. And they just found that when they were a little tanner, they just looked better. They pass the mirror, they see themselves, they look a little better. When you look better, you feel better, you perform better. Now, I take the time to tell you that because of the big 3, you could do without the growth hormone. I'm just sharing with you. You want it. It would come up. So you'd have your EPO, you have your growth hormone, you'd have your testosterone. So let's say you had access to any one of those 3. Okay, in any one of those 3. You're not going to take the testosterone and then say, whoa, I draw a line. I'm not taking growth hormone and EPO. There's a line here. That's not how it would work. you're never going to meet a kid who smoked dope. And then you come back and say, hey, well, when did you start drinking? And he goes, I've never drank. No, we've established you drank. As soon as I found out you smoked dope, I know you drank. The girl that's pregnant tells you she's never kissed a boy. No. I don't need to know about the guy. I know about the. We circled all the bases here, honey. So when you ask me what was he on, the big three is growth, EPO, and testosterone. Now of those, the actual substance you used to manipulate your test, your growth, or epogen, that can be a different topic. So there's a little bit of a broad stroke in that situation, but those are the ones. The world title athletes in that time phrase, there's your big three.